it was the first proper test of whether or not the ICC's arrest warrant for Putin is going to, eventually result in anything. There's a big question: will he ever actually see a courtroom, let alone the inside of a jail? And Khan was kind of optimistic, and he talked in the past about his experience during the Yugoslav tribunal and how people at the time would laugh about these various warlords basically being the idea that they would ever come to The Hague. And he said, well, they did come to The Hague. So, you never know. And he was basically optimistic.
You can read more in the Times today about the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, who says Britain is rediscovering its moral compass under Sir Keir Starmer. Karim Khan has been defending his decision to seek an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. The new UK government has dropped a legal challenge to the warrant. George Grylls is defence and political correspondent for the Times. Morning, George.
Morning.
Really interesting to hear from Karim Khan. I think, first of all, let's talk about the arrest warrant that he sort of pursues and is in pursuit of for Benjamin Netanyahu. Just remind us what happened, why he did that, when he did that.
That's right. So earlier this year, Karim Khan, so he's chief prosecutor of the ICC, he applied for an arrest warrant, basically for war crimes, to bring Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as Yoav Gallant, the Israeli defense minister, and 3 Hamas leaders to court. And that obviously provoked a huge amount of anger in Israel. Netanyahu compared him to, the Nazi judges of the 1930s who were depriving Jews of their freedom in the run-up to the Holocaust. So it was a quite, emotional time.
And in terms of the kind of political response to that, he says that he was being pressured by world leaders to step away from this.
Yeah, he says that, there were people basically saying that politically, particularly given the fact that the war is ongoing, maybe it was better for him to delay, to wait until after the conflict had ended, and that people were basically, having a quiet word, cajoling him to try and soften his position and not pursue Netanyahu, basically because they thought it undermined the kind of diplomatic picture.
And what then specifically of the UK response? Because it has changed from Rishi Sunak to Sir Keir Starmer.
So the UK played a crucial role in this. The UK filed an application basically questioning whether or not the ICC had jurisdiction over Israeli citizens. So in effect, what they were doing was shielding Netanyahu at that stage from prosecution. This is under the Conservative government. Then, when there was an election, the government under Keir Starmer dropped that and basically abandoned that position and basically gave the thumbs up for the ICC to go ahead. That's specifically important because if you think the US is the main ally of Israel, usually on the international stage, well, the US is not a signatory of the International Criminal Court. So it fell to the UK to step into that role.
That's really interesting. And therefore, we come to, I suppose, his own perception then of this, well, now fairly new Labour government, and Karim Khan seemingly welcoming the government's approach. Talk to us a little bit more about how he speaks of Sir Keir Starmer.
Yeah, this was in a BBC interview that he did this week where he was extremely warm about the new government, and he said there was a difference of tone and substance in relation to international law from the new government. But then he kind of went further and talked about the fact that he was British himself, comes from Yorkshire, and what he welcomed in particular was the quest to have a moral compass. He was kind of praising the government for a series of decisions, it seemed, that he saw as the kind of striving to be something better, and he said that was the best version of the UK.
He's quite interesting on President Putin as well. So Putin was visiting Mongolia, to Ulaanbaatar, and Mongolia is a member of the ICC, and so in theory, which should have been obliged to detain him, but did not, and so that caused some controversy. What's his take on that?
Yeah, it was the first proper test of whether or not the ICC's arrest warrant for Putin is going to, eventually result in anything. There's a big question: will he ever actually see a courtroom, let alone the inside of a jail? And Khan was kind of optimistic, and he talked in the past about his experience during the Yugoslav tribunal and how people at the time would laugh about these various warlords basically being the idea that they would ever come to The Hague. And he said, well, they did come to The Hague. So, you never know. And he was basically optimistic, but, he kind of has to be. He's the chief prosecutor, and it doesn't serve much if you lose hope in that role.
Yeah, I suppose that's a fair point. George, thank you very much. Really good to speak to you this morning. George Grylls, defence and political correspondent for The Times. You can read about Karim Khan, who did provoke quite a lot of anger, in Israel particularly, but, pressure from around the world after issuing that arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. But something of a warm welcome, I think, for Labour's approach. For more detail, as George has reported it here and in The Times for you, go to thetimes.com.